Hey guys, welcome back to the Detour Live. Apologies, we're a little bit late, about 9 minutes late, but come on, the bar's pretty low at times with punctuality with us. You know, we're going to be a bit late, but we're going back to the old format, and that is we're going to have a really good chat with one of our old mates, and Johnny Trevorrow. It doesn't get much bigger when you're talking about Aussies and Milan San Remo and the build-up than our guests on the show tonight.
Exactly. We're an Australian legend. The boy from Launceston. It's hard to believe he's 35 now. It looks a bit like Ned Kelly, but that's probably quite a fitting look, actually. But anyway, of course, it is Matty Goss, the boy from Launceston, and one of our great stars there is Ned Kelly.
Welcome to the show, Goose. It's good to see you, mate. It's been a long time. I can't even remember the last time we would have caught up in the flesh. And then his camera's dropped.
They lost him.
That's right.
The camera fell over, or you, Gossy?
No, it's been a while, hasn't it, fellas? It's good to catch up. It seems this time of year we do a couple of little podcasts and things around with everyone, so it's nice to have a bit of a chat.
Now, how do you go this time of year when, you know, there is a lot of build-up for a race, Milan San Remo? Of course, you were the winner in 2011. Does it sort of stir up the old emotions thinking about the build-up, you know, way back? Geez, to think that's 11 years ago now.
Yeah, I know, mate. It does go pretty quick, doesn't it? I start to think that eventually one of these days, people are going to stop calling because it's going to be that older news, and it'll start to be like, you know, a real throwback rather than just being, 10 years ago. It's getting up there now. Like, it's getting on. But it's nice. It's nice to sit there and, you know, look at the pictures and recount some of the stories from those days and that race specifically. But it's always good to have a reminisce, isn't it? Catch up with some mates and have a chat.
Well, we should get straight into we're obviously going to deep dive and go back to your start of your career and that. But that Milan San Remo, what can you sort of insights can you give the listeners and the viewers to sort of the build up to that edition and how you pulled off such a monumental victory?
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that it starts well back. You know, it started back in November the year before. Baden Cook and myself went up to Falls Creek. We put in some really big hours. We're doing nearly 300k training rides and 7-8 hours behind the motorbike. So it all started back then. But, you know, you only see that fruition when, you know, you get to Milan San Remo. But, I guess everything looked like it was on track. You know, started well at Down Under. You know, went to Oman, won there, managed to win races all the way up to Milan San Remo. So things look good, but it's one of those races you never know. You see how many different type of riders can win that race, and you never know until you cross the finish line you've got in the bag.
Iffy?
Yeah, because you're riding with HTC, and you had been sort of lead-out man for Cav for a while, but then they started to realise that you had some extra ability. So when did that all change the year before? Was that the case?
Yeah, pretty much. I think 2010. It was a pretty stacked team. So, you've got Greipel, you've got Cavendish, you've got Renshaw, you know, myself coming through a little bit as well. It's trying to get your opportunities was pretty tough, and you had to make the most of them when you did get them. So, I guess my opportunities come right back, you know, even in mid the year before, and I guess a big breakthrough to show that I could win in races over that distance coming, you know, it probably didn't get Wevelgem the year before that, but GP Plouay, you know, the old World Cup, you know, 260 Ks, plenty of climbing. And to get a win there is probably, you know, one of the things that set my mind into motion, thinking that, you know, these 250, 300K races aren't off the cards.
So this time, of course, the end of March is always the first of the Grand Tours. But you started the year well because you won the Bay Classic.
So, mate, the most important race all year.
Exactly.
4 minutes in, he's off to his old tricks, Johnny. Get the Bay grits in.
Well, it was.
2023 is going to be the biggest year yet, okay?
Remember rightly, you went from there and you went second overall in TDU.
Yeah, that was frustrating second place, that one. But look, every second place, well, it's probably not as much as frustrating as the World Championships, let's be honest. But second place there was pretty frustrating to win the opening criterium, to win a stage there. And I think I finished second by like 3 seconds or 2 seconds. I had to finish in the top 3 on the final day to get back to seconds on Cam Meyer. and I finished fourth. So it didn't pay off, but yeah, finished second there, and that started the ball rolling for sure. It built confidence to know that the work we put in the lead up to there was already starting to pay off.
We had Adam Hansen on this podcast, one of the most popular episodes we did, and he gave us a really good insight into the HTC environment. And, as you said, it was fully stacked. But the thing that really shocked most people was when he gave us a deep dive into like Bob Stapleton and, the famous printer that he'd have rolling up to races and, forcing riders into signing these shit contracts. Did you have any similar experiences with Bob through that period?
Bob was a funny one, man. Like he's obviously a hardened businessman, and I just remember that we were HTC. We were winning 70 odd races a year. I think one year we were there, 23 out of the 28 guys in the team won a race. And I remember at the Giro one year, it was the year that we did the gravel stage there. It was filthy dirty, and we were the only team that, I think we only had one bus where most teams had two buses. And our bus didn't have a shower. So we used to get into Bob, like, come on, mate. Like we winning a few races. We're trying hard here, mate. Can we have a bus with a shower? And his call was, buses don't win races, bike riders win races. But I tell you what, that day that we finished that gravel stage in the Giro, I think it won. And everyone got off the bike that day and they jumped into their nice warm buses and had a nice warm shower. We were outside the bus having bottles of water tipped over our head to try and clear us off. And that was my point. Like, I'm like, Bob, just chuck a shower in, mate. It's not that bad.
You would have been tempted to just go to one of your Aussie mates in another team and just say, mate, do you mind if I just jump in and have a quick douche?
I would have jumped in the shower with him at that point. I reckon. It would have I don't know why I didn't think that, to be honest, mate. I would have been straight up to another bus these days and go and jump straight in.
It must have been so hard because, as you said, you're winning races, and then to keep a good culture together, that would get toxic pretty quick. When you're going, this is bullshit. Like, why can't we get the most simplest of things? But at the same time, you're winning races, so
Yeah, look, I think that there was just a good bunch of guys. That when you get a good bunch of guys together, everyone fed off each other, and everyone, you've got that culture of like people want to see other people be successful, and that drives the motivation from those people who probably wouldn't normally be winning races, but they see the whole camaraderie between everyone, and I think everyone just got a boost in that team. And it was great to see everyone winning races, and the thing that made that possible, and the thing that helped people achieve that, was everyone else was happy to see them win. It's not like in some teams where someone gets dirty if they feel like they should have been the person being worked for, or everyone had their opportunity, everyone made the most of it, and when they succeeded, everyone was happy to see it.
Yeah. Iffy?
Well, now that you've started with Milan San Remo, I thought let's dive into that Milan San Remo and that last part. Everyone says the race doesn't really start till the suppressor. So take us through from there to the Poggio to the finish, your recollections of that day.
It was funny. I did a podcast with Bobby Julich and Jens Voigt the other day, and normally that's the case where the race doesn't really start until the Cipressa. But 2011, I think it was 2010 as well. They chucked in the extra climb called La Magna, which is about halfway through the race, and we went up there. It's a pretty hard climb, but it's a long way to go, so there's nothing major about it. But we come down the other side, and it had been raining, so it actually split the bunch into hundreds of pieces. And as we got to the bottom, I think it was myself and Pizzato were the last two guys that rode across to the front group. So normally your race starts at the Cipressa, you sit in a bunch, you save all your energy, and you think, you hope that you've got the legs when it comes to the final 30 or 40 Ks. But so we made this final split of about 80 or 100 guys it was, I think. And the main group was only about a minute behind for basically all the way to the Cipressa. So I was the only guy from my team, from HTC, it was actually made the front group. So I was just hoping and praying that I didn't get a flat wheel and that I got each feed bag, to be honest, until we got to the Cipressa. But yeah, once we got there, some of it's a bit of a blur. The Cipressa was a bit of I kind of rode up there, stayed close to the front, stayed pretty easy. I think Stewie was in a group off the front with Van Avermaet over the top in between the two climbs. But the decisive moment for me, I guess, was we're on the Poggio, a group of guys that kept chipping away off the front and had all the favourites in it. And it was about halfway up, just as you go through the hairpin, it starts to flatten around to the right up to the final, 800 metres a K. Nibley and myself managed to jump across to the front group, which, was one of the most deciding factors for the race, really. Probably second to, as we got over the top, we come straight down the descent. First corner was a U-turn. Myself, I was just trying to get as close to the front as I could, and was going way too fast, absolutely way too fast. Had no chance of making the corner, and it was just fortunate that it was Stewie that was about to turn in. So I screamed at him like I've never screamed at him before, and I probably screamed at him a few times. But he actually he stayed left and didn't turn in on me, and he saved my ass, to be honest. But you'd never want to drop your mate, obviously, but managed to get around that first corner, and we got down the descent, and I just had pick and choose the guys I focused on. I knew that I could be one of the fastest guys in the finish, but it was just about not wasting energy chasing down every single move in that final 5 kilometres from the bottom of the from the Poggio to the bottom and the finish of the race. And I just chose Fabian. Fabian was the guy that I thought, well, he's the strongest. He's the one that can ride away. I chose him and one other guy to follow if they moved, and I just had to take a risk that everyone else would chase down the other guys. So it was kind of a bit of a thing of, I was willing to lose the race to win it, because I picked the guys I need to focus on, and I had to let the other guys do that work. If they didn't do that work, then I had to take that punt.
So what was the emotion like when you crossed the line and you just realised that you'd won such a prestigious monument like Milan San Remo?
I don't know. The very moment I crossed the finish line, I guess it was almost relief, because it's one of those things, I'd been preparing since, the year before, and, everything pointed as though I should have had a good race that day. And as you guys know, watching cycling, just because you're in good shape, just because you're in good form, doesn't mean that you're going to win a bike race. There's so many variables. There's so much that can happen. And it was a little bit of relief, to win the races I've won in the lead up, and to have, that not favourite tag, but to be one of the favourites in the bike race, and to pull off the win was a great feeling. And, I was pretty fortunate that Eric Zabel worked with the team at HTC at the time, and he was, someone pretty handy to have in your ear when you come to Milan San Remo, and to have him waiting on the finish line as well, and be one of the first guys to congratulate me was, it's a pretty surreal thing as a young guy that was win, a big bike race, and that was pretty cool. And I guess one of my next memories is I saw Stewie. We're pretty good mates, and I was pretty pumped with the win, and he was just completely knackered after emptying himself for the last 20 or 30 Ks in the breakaway, and he probably wasn't as elated as I was, but I didn't let that worry me. I still showed him how happy I was. But
well, you rolled his teammate.
Yeah, he was probably thinking about the party afterwards as well.
Yeah.
But no, we still have one.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Like, given that Stewie didn't flick you on that corner, and you're not that far from Monaco, and experiencing what it was like in 2012, I mean, that just would have been one of the all-time nights.
It wasn't bad. Like, in hindsight, it probably should have been a bit smaller, because Gent Wevelgem was on Wednesday.
Mate, don't worry about Gent Wevelgem when you win Milan San Remo.
Like, you've got to make the most of the moment, I reckon.
That's
mate.
it.
That's what we did. We had a bit of a blinder that night. We but it wasn't just myself and the Aussie guys. It was the guys from the team, and a lot of guys who were in the race just in general. We had a table of about 20, 30 guys there. It was all just a big celebration, and the guys that have been there to help me through the years as well. So, excuse me. So it was really cool. It was really good night. Definitely felt average the next day. And look, HTC's not around anymore. Bob doesn't own the team. I probably did enter Gent Wevelgem that year. It probably wasn't as fresh as I could have been.
Well, he wouldn't buy your shower, so stuff him.
Yeah, exactly. He bought me a shower, I'll be right.
It's a good segue for an insight into there was a big community in Monaco, and there still is. A lot of Aussies and sort of expats. And what was it like living in a place like Monaco? Because people that don't know cycling, they see it, they think of the Grand Prix, they think of A-list celebrities. How was that experience for you, being part of that sort of bubble there?
Oh, look, it's like everything. There's always two sides to every story. There's all the glitz and glamour of some of the parts of it, but if you want to have a pasta for $12 down the road at the local pasta shop, it's pretty easy. There's some pretty, big sportsmen there that, most of these guys are pretty handy bike riders as well. But I guess the main reason for me was, I was 19, 20 years old when I moved over there. So to go to a different country and try and set up your own network of people when you're talking about osteos and physios and trainers and all this type of stuff, it was just a much easier step to go straight there and work just with the guys in the network that was already there and learn from the guys that were, winning some of the biggest bike races at the time and to be able to, learn from those guys is much better than just bashing your head against the wall in a small town in central France or central Italy trying to figure out who you're going to get a massage on the next day.
Lee Bryan there back then?
Say again, sorry, JT?
Lee Bryan there back then?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, he was there. He was there right from the start. So I worked with Lee, right from day dot, really. Even beforehand, I was in contact with him and I worked with him right through to when I finished and packed up and come home. But, he was one of the guys that, you could go out motor pacing with him. But as a 20-year-old guy, that was motor pacing as well with Brad McGee, O'Grady, Cookie, Matt Wilson, all these guys that when I was a young guy, they're the people we need to learn from.
Now, obviously, 2011, you touched on it earlier, how agonisingly close you came in the Worlds. I think we've got a screenshot of your tweet around the time.
Yeah, you beauty. Thank you.
Yeah, well, let's just move on. We don't need to talk about that.
We lost that one.
My memory of that Worlds was I was obviously going to be doing work with GreenEDGE, and Shane Bannon said, I think you should come over the Worlds and see the guys. And I bumped into this guy in the lobby of the hotel, and he had an Aussie accent. And he looked at me, and I said, "How you going, mate?" He goes, "Yeah, good, mate. How you going?" I go, "What are you doing over here?" He goes, "I'm here to watch my son." "Who's your son?" "Matt Goss." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be working with him next year." "Ah, sensational." Anyway, we struck a light, and that was, you talk about big nights, that was one of the biggest nights I'd had. I think it was the night before the Worlds, where me and your old man Harley went on a tour of Denmark, and I think we ended up getting back to the hotel at some ungodly hour, and there was a 50th birthday going on, and someone had a guitar, so we hijacked the guitar, and me and Harley started singing Kevin Bloody Wilson and John Denver, and we had them all in stitches. And then I just remember the next day we were both that sick, and it was the day of the World, so we had to fight through it. But, I mean, your old man was an absolute bloody legend, and that was my first
I do remember that story. I don't know if it was you that told me that, or I think it might have been you, Dan, told me that one in the past. And, that sums him up pretty well. Sounds like he had a good time, and it sounds like both of you had a good time that night. And, he probably was a bit more fortunate. He could just sit there and just watch the race, where you might have a bit more to do there, Dan. But, I don't think that was the only night he had there as well. I think he backed up, I think, the night after.
Yeah. and then when I spoke to you about it, you said, "Mate, he doesn't really drink that much." I said, "Really?"
He'll have a few beers, but not out till that time of the morning, mate. I've never seen that. That's a rarity.
Yeah. But, I mean, obviously, that year and all the results that you had, and you knew that there was, this swirl about GreenEDGE starting, and, they needed X amount of points as well to come across to the team. What were you going to say, John?
No.
I was just going to say, so you were one of the key signings for the team. I mean, what were you weighing up in terms of being the right fit? And was there other teams that were knocking at the door that you had to sort of weigh up where you were going to go in 2012?
Yeah, there was. Look, to be honest, it was probably the main two teams that it came down to was between Sky at the time and GreenEDGE. And, there was one or two others in there. Quickstep was in the mix for a little while. But ultimately, it came down to a decision between Sky and GreenEDGE. And I think at the time, I just remember thinking, like, why would you not want to be part of a groundbreaking team? Jerry's put so much into the sport over the years, and we know that his passion for the sport, and for me, and I know for a lot of the guys, the opportunity to be part of Australia's first World Tour team was just something you couldn't pass up. It wasn't necessarily a dollar figure. It wasn't anything like that. I get a little bit maybe so that Sky were always going to be a little bit more focused towards, the Tour and the Grand Tours and the general classification of races, and to be with GreenEDGE was a bit more of an opportunity to build our own, direction, to go with sprints, to go with some of the classics and that type of stuff. But ultimately, mate, it was, who doesn't want to be part of the first ever Aussie team to take on the world and world tour?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to hear just a fraction while we're talking about that world title in Copenhagen. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that last kilometre, because when I look back at it, I've watched it a couple of times, and just that fraction, you probably should have beaten him, but
yeah,
but didn't happen.
I've watched it a few times. I've been shown it many more. Look, ultimately, I should, like I said, I did this podcast with Jens Boy and Bobby Julie the other day, and they said, what's 3 things you would change, in your career if you could talk to your younger self? And the first one I said is, don't move off the fence in 2011 World Championships. Because, Cav's a world class. He's been the best of our generation of the sprinters, so there's no shame in being beaten by him, but I don't think I gave myself the best opportunity that day, and that everything was done perfect for the whole race. I hadn't used any energy, felt perfectly good, best, in great shape. And I just followed Heinrich's wheel a little bit too far out into the centre of the road as he did the lead out, and it opened that opportunity for Cav to shoot through the inside, get the gap. And he beat me. It's frustrating to watch that finish.
So you actually, he's come past you and you've come past him.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. It's frustrating to watch because I literally was back in front of him about half a metre after the finish line, but that doesn't matter. It was 277.6 Ks, not 277.7, was it? So, it's frustrating, but I don't see it as a downside. Down point, it's still a nice highlight of my career. There's only been a handful of Aussie guys to stand on the World Championship podium, and but yeah, it's one that you're always going to, stew on a little bit, and you look at, and there were some pretty nice bonuses in place that day that I didn't get to put my hands on, but just to be able to have that jersey and to be able to wear that, and it's one that kind of got away, but like I said, it's not a shame to be beaten by Cav. It's the best of our generation, I think, and I should have just stayed on that fence just a little bit longer.
Just on Cav, you obviously had an amazing Tour de France last year. Were you just shaking your head that he can still produce these results, after so many years at the top level?
Yes. I know what he's like. He's one of the most determined characters on a bike, man. He's got absolute grit. But I think what's the most impressive is to see the gap between the wins. To be so dominant and then to not be at the Tour and not win, and then to come back and win in the style he won last year is just phenomenal, and it just reconfirms what I kind of said, that he is, the sprinter of my generation, the guys that I've raced with, as he's probably changing a bit now, but it was phenomenal. It was awesome to see, and I was stoked to see him get back to the top, and whether he does it again this year or not, it doesn't really matter. He's proved the people wrong that thought he was done and dusted.
Yeah, well, he won last night in Milan.
Yeah, San Remo, yeah.
So he's still got the form, but doesn't look like he's going to get a start in the Tour de France. He's not getting a start in Milan San Remo on Saturday either, so he'd be pretty disappointed in that. But talking about World Championships, you have donned the rainbow jersey because you were World Tour Pursuit back in 2006. You were part of the winning team in 2006, is that correct?
Yeah, mate, a few moons. That's even more moons ago now. Jesus. I'll have to put there's got to be a statute of limitations on these results, mate. So.
No, well, if he still talks about bloody Munich Olympics and 72 and all that stuff, mate, you've still got another 20 years to milk this cow.
2006, the World Championships in Bordeaux. We won the team pursuit, but I think we only won it in 4 minutes flat, mate. I don't reckon even that wouldn't even qualify within 15 seconds of the slowest team now. But it was an interesting one because it was only literally I think a handful of weeks before that we had the Com Games in Melbourne, and we actually got beaten by the Great British team in Melbourne by 0.0 something of a second, and then we actually managed to turn it around for the World Championships a few weeks later in Bordeaux. So yeah, it was nice. It was. It's always nice to have a world championship in a senior level under the belt.
Hey, we're going to take a quick drinks break, lads. We'll be back with more from Gossy. We'll talk a bit more about the GreenEDGE days, so stay tuned.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Are you dreaming of the ultimate cycling holiday? Mummu Cycling is the best in the business. Official tour operators for all grand tours and monuments, you will ride the best climbs, enjoy VIP access and race viewing, all hosted by some of the world's best pros, including 17-time Tour de France rider and Paris-Roubaix champion Stuart O'Grady. Start planning your ultimate holiday at www.mummucycling.com.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange and Mummu Cycling. Now, Mummu Cycling is something that's close to your heart, Gossy, because you're well connected with the crew there. And are you going to be heading over to a few of the races this year, mate?
I'm not sure at this point, mate. I guess we'll just see how it all pans out. Hopefully everything can go ahead for the guys. You know, I've had a few good tours with those guys. We did the Giro and the Tour, and you know, they've been great tours. Been fantastic. Marcel and Stewie and the guys put on a good experience. You know, you're going to get, you know, some really fantastic access with those guys and speak to some people and some riders that you would normally only ever see going past about 45, 50k an hour. So I've had some great times with those guys, and you know, we'll see what happens in the future.
It's pretty special, isn't it? I was just going to say, you know, you really can give people a bit of an insight into what it's like traveling with Mummu, because, you know, they're fully accredited for all, you know, for the classics, which are coming up shortly, for the Giro and the Tour, and the Vuelta. So when you're there, you actually get to ride on the course on the day. So you feel like, you know, all the crowds are there, and you get to ride through. You often get up onto the podium at the finish, you know, into the VIP village at the start. All of these things can happen. Plus, you get to meet some of the real superstars of the of cycling, and blokes like you and Stewie chatting to them every day and every evening. So they do it so well.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, you get to ride. When we went to the Tour, you're riding along the course with a closed road, basically with a motorbike, you know, basically with an escort. You can cruise along. You're getting the closest experience you're going to get to riding Tour de France. You know, you're coming in over the finish line just before the race does. You're standing up on the, you know, on the dais there, and you know, it's there's only I don't know the exact number, but there's only a handful of accredited companies that can do that, and the exclusivity and the riders that you get access to, like I said, you know, especially with Stewie, you know. You can go up and have a chat to basically anyone. You know, I know we used to basically sit there and ask people who they'd like to see during their time there, and we try our best to try and make it happen. And yeah, great organisation. You know, we had great accommodation. Who doesn't want to ride around Italy or France and, you know, have some wine, eat good food, and you know, watch some bike racing?
Did you find that experience more enjoyable than as a rider, or did you sort of get the tingles where you're like, I wish I was like bashing them out in the sprints?
Oh, it depends which part, mate. I don't mind going across the finish line and stand on the dais, but I definitely didn't get the tingles when you're riding up some of those climbs. That was miserable still. I remember when we did the Giro the first time we went over there. Well, first time I went with the guys at Mummu, and we went to do the Zoncolan, and I remember saying when we got on the bus, has everyone got their shoes? Has everyone got their helmets? You know, it's a big drive. We've got a long way to go to get there. Rah rah rah. We got there, unpacked all our stuff, got ready to go, and then Stewie forgot his shoes. So I remember like going, mate, we rode the same size bike, same size shoes, everything. So I'm like, you know what? It's a Zoncolan. You can have my shoes, and you can go and do that bad boy with the guests. He went off and he went looking for some shoes and stuff and some cleats and things. I hadn't made it back, so I ended up riding up the Zoncolan that day with half the guys in my sneakers. So that was way more miserable than it was riding and racing. But it's all experience, all good fun that we had on those tours.
Now, back to 2012, I'll be completely honest with you. I remember that first Tour de France, and, you know, because the name GreenEDGE, and, you know, they thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's win the green jersey. And I sort of felt bad for you because in an ideal scenario, obviously Peter Sagan was on the scene there and he was smashing up the sprints and he could climb, he could do everything, get all the points. Ideal scenario would be, let's just hide out and let's save our biscuits for particular stages. But it felt like in reflection, the team were absolutely pinned and cooked, trying to squeeze every last point for the green jersey. And a lot of that weight for yourself was on your shoulders.
Yeah, look, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Like, if you look back now, I think in that tour there was 6 sprint finishes, but since 6 flat, like purely flat bunch finishes, and I finished 2nd or 3rd in 5 out of those 6 days, except for one where I finished 4th. And every one of those days and every other day we were going in the breakaway and going for the intermediate sprints, and where I ended up getting rubbed for impeding Sagan there one day when we were about 100 metres in front of the bunch, and I got relegated to last, which cost me the whole day's points, which was more frustrating because I rode my ass out that day and it was bloody hard to get there and get those points. But you know, looking back, I lost the stage by next to nothing to Greipel on top of you know, I can't remember the name of the town now, but it was by not much at all. And even on the Champs-Elysees, I remember, like, you know, Cavs hit a bump in the last couple of 100 metres, saw his back wheel come off the ground and made that jump, but it was just always lacking that, you know, that couple of percent that I was taking out of myself every day by going for every intermediate and jumping in breakaways in mountain stages. And, you know, I think I ended up finishing 3rd that year in the green jersey. I think I basically cracked it when Cav come back past me on the Champs-Elysees and I finished 3rd instead of 2nd. It cost me, you know, the 2nd or 3rd, 2nd in the green jersey. But look, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We could sit back and say, look, it would have been nice to take a stage win, and it would have been awesome for the team to get a stage win. But we kind of went in with a goal. We tried to focus on that goal, and you know, we ended up chasing it all the way to Paris. We didn't get there, but it would have been nice to have that one stage win under the belt. But I still look at 2013 as one of my highlights of my career, to win the team time trial with a bunch of your mates. You know, we went to that team to start as an Aussie team and to win and to have I think it's still the fastest ever Tour de France stage. And stand on the dais.
If we're talking about that, we've got to go back a couple of days, because when you think about that day when the team bus got stuck under the stage 2, in some ways it was your fault, Gossy.
Okay.
Why is that, John? Where's the punchline?
Well, I'll take it, mate. Look, I'm going to be a scapegoat. Go.
Well,
you need to get something off your chest.
We're in the finish, and Jerry's down there, and all the buses, and they said, "Where's the team bus?" And someone said, "Oh, look, the riders are only staying, you know, a few hundred metres away. So the bus is just going to go straight to there, because the riders are all just right back." I said, "But what about if Gossy wins the stage? Where's the press going to go to? They're going to come to the bus, and the bus isn't here." Oh,
you're right. It is your fault.
No, it's not my fault. It's your fault, JT, by the sounds of it.
I'm only a team mascot.
You passed the buck early there,
I'm only
mate.
a team mascot.
Actually, if you look on the finish of that stage, you'll see something pretty funny because not only did the bus get caught under the bloody Dias thing, and that caused all ruckus, and our finish line changed about 3 times in the last 5Ks, but I actually clipped the wheel of somebody in the bunch sprint because it was only a point or two difference in the jersey, and whoever finished in front was basically going to get the jersey that day because it being the first day and the intermediate sprints and stuff. And I clipped Hendy's wheel as he was doing the lead out for, it must have been Ripple, I guess, at the time. I clipped his front wheel, and it just sheared all the spokes out of one side of my wheel. And all I could think was how pissed off I was that I wasn't going to be able to have the opportunity to sprint. But I just kept riding along, but it was inside the last couple of 100 metres. So if you've taken half the spokes out of your front wheel, the last thing you'll do is just hit the anchors really hard. So I was trying to slow down gently without collapsing the front wheel, and I'd done it pretty much until about 20k an hour. And if you look in the background of that sprint of the first tour stage in Corsica, you'll just see me as my front wheel collapses, do this little cartwheel over the front at about 20k an hour. It's the most ridiculous looking crash you'll ever see. And you just see this little tumble, and I'm just kind of standing there like, what a wasted opportunity, but also what a clown I look like in the background.
200 metres to go, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only about 200 metres to go, 150 metres to go. It finally gave out, and I did this little, like, 5-year-old tumble over the front of the handlebars and bloody front wheel.
But I remember there was a lot of tension because, you know, once the smoke settled and, you know, the air conditioning unit was buggered on the bus, so it was just 100 degrees inside. You know, Jerry went from getting all the publicity to like, hang on, we're going to look like a bloody laughing stock. And I was told, you're not releasing that AC/DC video, mate. I don't give a shit how much time you put into it. That will, like, we look like a laughing stock. So the pressure was on. And then there was just such a relief when Gero got the chocolates by a millimetre against Sagan on stage 3. So,
yeah.
And that was just great momentum because going into that team time trial, the monkey was off the back. I think you guys arrived late to the start and barely did a warm-up and then just went out and smashed it.
Yeah, mate, that was unreal that day. Just, you know, to have Gero win the day before. But it was just so quick. I remember riding out along the promenade d'Anglaise there and just looking at the speed, I think like 68k an hour. Like, we're not going to be able to hold on to this. Like 68, 70k an hour, and it was just absolutely pinned the whole way. It was one of those days where everything just kind of worked. Everyone did exactly what they needed to do, and to come home with a yellow as well was crazy. And you know, it's one of those things where we all, a bunch of Aussies, as well as, you know, the others involved, not just the Aussies, but for the Aussies especially, I feel like it was a big moment because we all took a punt to go to this Aussie team. We believed it. We trusted the guys that were around it at the time. And, you know, to put it all together, it's nice to have individual success. You know, I want to say to the Giro, we won San Remo with Gero as well. But for me to sit up there with, it's still one of my best memories, is to sit up there with a bunch of mates that you've come to this team with as Aussies in an Aussie team, and to be standing on the top step of the Tour de France together in that whole scenario and the way it worked out is one of my best memories from my career.
Oh, and Iffy and Jerry had the Jayco dealers there at the finish line, the VIP, 150
I was in caravans that day.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, and he had a big area right on the finish line. He had all his Jayco dealers there and that. And I was a little bit crook. I was sort of going through my little health battle at the time. I remember sitting up in there, and the new guys, you know, have just stormed over. And I remember Jerry pushed all the deals out of the way and grabbed me and gave me a big cuddle. And that night, you probably won't remember this, Gossy, but because you normally, when we have dinner with the team, riders sit on one table and the staff and anyone else all sit on another table. That night, Shane and Jerry said, you're sitting with the boys, so I got to have dinner with you guys. So enjoy it. So team mascot stepped up. It was great.
I'm sure there wouldn't have been any red wines consumed that night anyway. It would have been a nice, easy dinner after that race.
Yeah, that's right.
Will do. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just stoked because then after that success and having the yellow jerseys for 4 days, we could release the AC/DC video. So,
and that's what we've worked hard on, Dan.
That's right.
We have worked hard on that, though.
You should. It's time to, during this next 10 minutes, you've got to dig that up and play a fraction of it because.
Well, you keep talking to Gossy, and I'll bring this in. The video will get pulled down on YouTube, but who cares? Let's take a punt. Let's just show
mate. That was you might get taken down again there. But no, it was awesome. I remember doing filming of that. Like, some fantastic mullets, some great lines.
Yep.
There should be a GreenEDGE classic hits, really, shouldn't there? There was a couple there, so
Yeah.
we need to put them all together.
But just on that, like I remember when I first started with the team, I mean, I was pretty nervous thinking, geez, like the thought of having someone around filming 24/7, like I wouldn't want that, because it's all based on trust. And then there was that famous backstage when you were at Tour of Turkey and you had a crook guts and you had to go back to the car and you were in a panic. I thought, oh shit, what's happened here? And he goes, toilet paper, I need toilet paper. And what? He goes, what? You go, I'm going to shit myself.
I remember that. I ended up pulling over, I think 1 or 2 laps. I remember pulling over at a service station where I could do what I needed to do with the door open. And when I seen the last car go past, I'd pull the strides back up, jump on my bike and jump back into the last convoy, get back to the bunch and take number 2, take a crap there again the next lap. Like, that was a pretty miserable time. I just remember sitting on the toilet just watching the cars go past. I'm like, yep, that's the last one. Time to go back on the bike.
That's right. Now, I think I've got the video, the OGE rocks. Hang on. Desktop. Here we go. Yep, here we go. So this video will probably get pulled.
Tribute to the greatest man in the world. ACDC. Woo! Yeah.
There you go.
Bit of a blast from the past, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. People listening to the audio version will be going, what is going on?
That is absolutely amazing.
Well, there was a bit of a story with that fireworks there too.
That's right.
As comfy as they looked.
No, so we
People
had
who
fireworks.
listen to that have got to watch it now, because that is the most amazing video of all time.
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining, that's for sure. But we had a fireworks show in Spain. They had this fireworks night, so we got some big berthers, and we had this plan where they would go. Remember the Harlem Shake was big at the time?
Yeah, I remember seeing that there.
So we tried to do that, but one of the fireworks got stuck in the park bench, and geez, if Bewley didn't like get up and run, because as soon as I could see it stuck, I just yelled, get out! And he moved, and the thing blew up, and he would have lost his leg. And Corinne Rivera was in that shot because she was staying for a couple of months. I don't know how she ended up there. She's mates with Amy Brayley or whatever. So she almost got blown away as well. So really happy. Yep. So yeah, it was good fun. But I mean, that whole period and that team, like the culture within GreenEDGE during that period, it was such a good mix of like what you experienced at HTC. Like, you've got all this talent, but working together, there didn't feel like there was any egos. And it just wasn't, it just felt like such an even keel in terms of just mateship,
Yeah, you're right. I think that a lot of the guys that were in that team at the time too had been mates for a long time, all rivals. And there was a mix of youth and experience in there that, I think a lot of the guys that were at the older end of the spectrum were happy to pass on their knowledge to the younger guys, and I think everyone got along well. Everyone wanted to win for the team, and everyone wanted to be successful, no matter who it was crossing the line first. And that's all you can ask for in a team is to have that attitude and to have that mindset of your teammates that they're willing to throw it on the line to win.
That's the moment. Just a couple of days after the team time trial, when Gossy, helped orchestrate the passing over of the yellow jersey to Dale Empey. That's not done.
Gossy, you mean Gero?
I'd say Gossy, sorry, Gero. But I mean, it's just not done because very rarely it was something really special. I thought it really just epitomised everything that GreenEDGE was about.
Absolutely, and Empey was one of the legends of the team. Even though we're only in our first or second year, but he'd always given so much for everyone else, and he'd always put himself on the line to help everyone else win. And it was a massive gesture from Gero, 100%. You cherish everyone every day you could get in that jersey, and it was something that 99% of riders don't get to experience. And to do what he did is such a big gesture. And Impey was a guy that deserved it. He's always put himself on the line for the team. He's taken his opportunities when he could. He's won some good bike races, some fantastic bike races. But I think that for anyone to have the green jersey in the tour is always going to be a highlight for them, no matter what.
So, how have you found your post-cycling life, Gossy? Like, we've spoken to a few riders that, have retired and then some have struggled with the transition. Some have, relished it because it's given them the opportunity and freedom to do other things that they're passionate about. How did you find that transition post-cycling?
Look, it was different. I was ready to retire. I kind of felt like I'd had enough, and I felt like I was at the age where if I wanted to do something else, I had the opportunity to take the time to do it rather than ride around and collect paychecks and not really be successful as I had been in the past. So I wanted to go away and really try and achieve something else. And we took a bit of time before we got stuck into anything else, but we ended up getting into some, bars and restaurants, hospitality and hotels, which, has probably been a tough couple of years for that industry as well. But it's been good. It's been fun. It's been new challenges. It's been learning to do, stuff I'd never done before. But I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
I was going to say, I've got to go back with a couple of stories, but very soon I think we should go into Milan San Remo and look at what pick who we think is going to win and that sort of stuff. But I just wanted to go back, Gossy, to the Herald Sun Tour. I'm trying to think the Joko Herald Sun Tour. I can't remember the year, but I think Stewie ended up winning that one. But
2007.
Yeah, but I remember the ride you did up Mount Buller. You had the sprinter's jersey on, but you rode on the front right until about the last kilometre of that climb, and you weren't known as a climber. And I remember being blown away by just the ride that you put up that day. What are your memories of that?
I do remember that day. I remember more of that than the bloody time trial we did there that day. That was horrible, and that was only on the flat, but that was for my own reasons. It was horrible, but I remember that day. I don't remember the whole details of it. I remember it was was it 2007 or 2008?
2008, I thought.
Oh, actually, it might have been 2008.
So I think it was Brad McGee's last year on last race. Was it? Is that right?
I remember that.
So I remember Brad riding on the front and trying and helping out for the early part of the race, and it was kind of between Stewie and Lars Back, I think, which were in the same team as to the yellow jersey. I remember just having super legs that day, climbing up there and, when you get in a rhythm, and I wasn't really looking around too much. I was kind of just doing what the guys behind me wanted to do. And, I remember it was probably only about a kilometre, like 1,200 metres from the top and looking around. I think there was only like 3 or 4 blokes left. And that was probably a shock to me, to be honest, as well, JT. It's not very often I shelled most of the guys on a climb, but we seem to have a pretty phenomenal week that week at the Herald Sun Tour. Stewie won a couple of stages, or the overall. I think I won 1 or 2 stages in the green jersey, and we had a great race. It was awesome to come back home and race in Australia after spending the season away. It was always nice. It was always nice to finish with the Sun Tour, and to have success there as well was pretty cool. But I do remember that day, and I do remember looking around and thinking, I'm probably not going to see this too many times in my career. I'd ride most of the bunch off the wheel.
Did you sell a heap of kit on the last day? Because that was
absolutely, mate.
Big
Suitcases full. I paid like 2,000 euros excess luggage to sell $1,500 worth of kit.
I remember having an evening with Alan Lang, because Alan Lang used to love you, Gossy. God rest his soul. The Riddler, yeah, we miss him desperately. But
I remember having a couple of good nights with you guys.
Yeah,
JT and Alan, I've still got a couple of nice bottles of wine. Actually, I've got one left. That I remember if I won a Bay Crits or something like. If I won a stage, he'd buy me a bottle per stage and a carton. If I won the overall, and I think I won 2 stages of Bay Crits or 1 or 2 stages of Bay Crits and won the overall. And he didn't want to bring across like 14 bottles of wine to the Tour Down Under, so he brought me over a couple of bottles of Grange. And actually, I still have one of those bottles of Grange, Johnny, and we'll have to maybe open that one day. But when I opened the first one, it was on my retirement. I had a bit of a party down here in Tassie at home, and it was with all the guys that we'd raced, well, a bunch of the guys we'd raced with Cookie, with Stewie, and these guys, and we actually opened the bottle that Alan gave us then and made a special note to, remember what a top bloke he was.
Sensational.
Couple of comments. Wendy Superfan, hi Dan, John, and Matt. And Nolesy, he says, great to see Tassie's own Matt Goss. Really looking forward to this weekend's racing. Have you got any tips for Milan San Remo on the weekend, Gossy?
Mate, these guys are so strong. Like, they're just phenomenal. Like the way that some of these guys are riding now. I've seen some of the stats the other day. That I can't remember which one of the guys it was, but it won like 8 out of the 12 starts or something phenomenal. And look, I don't know. This is what's great about Milan San Remo, I think, is you never know who can win. You know, we won in a small group in 2011. Gero won from an even smaller group the following year. Nibali's won from a group of 5.
As well.
Yeah, and been full bunch sprints. Look, I said this the other day as well on a podcast, but who wouldn't love to see Caleb or Bling get up there? You know, they're Aussies. They've been close. They've been around the mark. They've been on the podium, but you always want to see an Aussie win. And those guys have been consistent, been good at the top of their game for a long time. And I'd love to see one of those guys climb on the top step.
Great stuff, mate.
I think the interesting part is to get your thoughts on this, Gossy, is the sort of X factor, I guess, is Pogačar, because he's racing it to win, which means that the UAE team are going to light it up maybe even earlier than usual, and it's going to put a lot of extra pressure on Caleb, because Caleb, he's had 2 seconds, and he really last year, it was a real shame, he should have won it. So I know he's desperate. I just wonder if that Pogačar factor could be just the undoing for Caleb.
Look, it could be. Look, Milan San Remo is one of these ones. Well, you've seen how extreme the weather can be. But it really is dependent a lot on the wind. If they've got a strong headwind coming up those climbs, then, as strong as you might be, that they're fast enough that you still get a sit. You're going 40 plus k an hour up the Poggio in some places, and it's no different on the Cipressa. So if they've got the wind that's in a headwind for this race, then it's going to be easier for Caleb and some of the sprinters to sit in and get to the finish. You can only light it up so much on the flat before the Cipressa and the Poggio, and you're not going to attack on the Ticino early on in the race. But if they've got a tailwind, then it's a different story. They can make this race really hard, really fast, and make it a more attacking style of race.
Yeah, it's going to be must-see viewing. Anything you want to add before we wrap things up, Iffy?
No, just your selection. So, Dan, who's your selection?
I'm going for Caleb. All chips in. Why not?
Yeah, I was going for Caleb up until I've just had another real look at it today, and I just got a feeling that it just could get a fraction harder, and I'll go for Van Aert. Hard to beat. Yeah.
Van Aert's going to be tough to beat. But you want to go sentimental. Let's go an Aussie. I'm going to go either Caleb or Bling.
Yeah, that's it. Great tips. Hey, Gossy, it's been bloody great having you on the show, mate. It's great to hear your voice again, and looking forward to catching up. Hopefully one day in the flesh pretty soon. And all the best with all the ventures that you got going on at the moment. John, before we wrap things up, mate.
Well, for any of Australians who are heading to Tassie anytime soon,
yes.
What are the names of your bars, Gossy? Because they should go and visit you.
That's right. Oh, no, his Wi-Fi's dropped out. Oh, Gossy's gone. That is hilarious. His Wi-Fi's dropped out. Oh, no. He was just about to give him a plug. Well, Google it. Google Matt Goss pubs. Where are he? Launceston? Launceston.
Yeah. And I've been to one. Absolutely amazing food. He only had one pub last time I was over there. He's got a second one now, second bar, restaurant, pub. So we'll
mention the podcast, and he'll look after you for sure. YouTube.com/The Detour Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back again soon. But follow our socials, because sometimes, we do random shows on Tuesdays or Sunday or whatever. So stay tuned to our socials on Facebook and Twitter. And we'll keep you informed. But thanks again to Matt Goss. He was a great guest, great bloke, and should be a cracking Milan San Remo on the weekend. Speak to you soon, guys. Cheers.
This is the winning ride of the Tour de